Yes, when
Yeah.
he's doing Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. Yeah, man.
And it was just he literally was just rhyming over it. That was a simple beat. That beat was not complex.
Didn't have to be. It didn't have to be. I mean, Dre, the only song, Beautiful but Deadly, it's
I'm with
you could skip it, but
Yeah.
me when I'm listening, I normally listen to it. And I've gone back and forth with some of the homies about it. But other than that, man, I mean, like this album is flawless. And it ends with the grand finale, which is the posse cut, which
People weren't doing that until D.O.C. did that.
yeah, man, you had to have a posse cut of your crew. And this is the great thing about hip hop back then was that like you did when you had a posse cut, it was just you and your crew. So it wasn't going to be NWA and Ice-T because Ice-T wasn't in their crew. It wasn't going to be NWA and Sir Mix-a-Lot, you know, because it wasn't in their crew. So it was just strictly for you and your crew. It wasn't really until we got into the like mid 90s where you started seeing collabs where you might have a LL and a Jay-Z or LL and a DMX or something like that. You know, outside of that, you really, if you go back into the albums from the 80s, you ain't really see a lot of people collaborating. I mean, like, I'll give you an example. Like,
I guess the symphony would be one, right? With
yeah,
everybody.
well, they were all the same crew because that was the Juice Crew.
Right.
But I mean, like, even hearing a song like Burn Hollywood Burn, they were now you got Kane, you got Chuck D, and you got Ice Cube. But the common denominator is that Cube at the time was using the Bomb Squad, which is Public Enemy's production team.
He's on the East Coast at the time.
Exactly. So he was on the East Coast a lot. So that's how you get a Kane. That's how you get a Chuck D on a song like that. But something like, you know, the grand finale, that was just like a dope posse cut, and it was the last track on the album. And it finished up what I thought was an incredible album.
And I wonder if this is the only song Cube is on. I just wonder if this was like recorded before Cube because America's Most came out right is
90, I think, either 90 or 91.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering if he was already leaving by the time this had already dropped.
Cube probably had a foot out the door, but if you think about it, the
America's Most is 90. It came out in 90. So you got to think he's recording this this came out. It was recorded, they said January, March 1990.
Mm-hmm. So this comes out in 80.
They say it came out 89.
Yeah, D.O.C. album comes out in 89. So it's like Cube probably had a foot out the door. But I mean, you know, he and D.O.C. were cool. He didn't have no issues with D.O.C. His issues with Easy and Jerry Heller.
Yeah.
But that was tough really to lose Ice Cube at that particular time. But I mean, they had the D.O.C. who was in their minds probably just as good as a writer. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, he had that car accident.
So let's get into the what if territory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is gonna be a double thing though. So before we go into the ultimate what if with him in the car accident, or I would say, do you think they would have added D.O.C. to NWA if he did not get into the car accident? That's my first question for you.
If he did not get into the car accident,
right? Do you think that it was a setup, or do you think that he was like, dude, I'm already solo, why would I join the group?
I think if you remove the accident, let's say the accident doesn't happen, I think Cube leaving, I think D.O.C. slides right in. I think he becomes because he was really, if you think about it, he was a de facto member of NWA. Yes. He contributed to NWA and the Posse. Yep. He contributed to Easy Does It, and he contributed to Straight Outta Compton. So he was already there. I mean, so it would have been easy for him to slide in and be a member at that particular time, but because Cube was gone. So yeah, if the accident doesn't happen, he's a de facto member right there.
Does D.O.C. diss Ice Cube on 100 Miles and Running?
If he's a part of the group, he's got to roll with it. But that's
niggas for life. Yeah, I mean, all niggas for life.
Niggas for life. Yeah, I know what you meant. But I mean, like, even in that, man, it was they did what they had to do because like if you think about it, like, do you really think Ren and Ice Cube had beef? Like, I don't think Ren had any beef with Ice Cube. Again, I think his beef was with Jerry and Easy, and subsequently Easy. And if you follow the Straight Outta Compton movie, it kind of plays that way. Now, keep in mind, Straight Outta Compton was written and directed by Ice Cube and Dre, and they contributed in Eazy's widow, Erica Wright. So you have to take this all with a grain of salt because it's one perspective. We never got Eazy's perspective because Eazy's no longer here. Rest in peace. But I think it would have played out. He would have ended up dissing him. But I mean, like even Ren and those guys dissing him. Like, did Yellow have beef with Ice Cube? I think they probably were just upset that he left, right?
Yeah.
And then it was like, Eazy was probably like, man, fuck Ice Cube. And then they had to be like that too. So that's what it was.
Yeah, because it was always interesting. Why did Dre have to say the line that was really the one that what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So we have 4, but we needed to drop one.
and exactly. And I mean, like,
even 5, we couldn't take one, so we had to drop one.
And I don't even think Dre and Cube had beef like that. I just don't. And to be honest, just from what I've heard, I've never been able to confirm all of this, but they said that Eazy and Cube kind of made up before Eazy passed. So
yeah,
I don't think it was, it was just business. And they kind of strike me as guys who were not somebody who was formulated and put together. They seemed like a unit of guys who had been together for a while. And I don't know if they came from all from the same neighborhoods, but they were cool and really, for lack of better terms, friends. So,
all right. So where does D.O.C. career go if he does not get into? So for our listeners that may not know, D.O.C. was drunk and ends up crashing, taking out, basically almost dying and killing himself. And he basically, his throat cannot rap anymore. He has this raspy voice now. That voice that you can hear on is getting funky. When you hear come in that brings you in, is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And to a certain extent, maybe his energy, even for the pen, is gone. What if he does not get into this car accident?
If the D.O.C. doesn't get into this car accident, everything changes. You can make a case that Ruthless stays the same. Maybe Dre doesn't leave. Maybe just maybe Suge that keeps Suge away, and Suge doesn't have the chance to come in and swoop.
But Suge started managing D.O.C. at the time. He was his manager when he got an accident.
That part too, but I mean, like maybe those paths never cross if D.O.C. doesn't get into that accident. This might be one of the biggest what ifs in hip hop history because this guy was literally a superstar in the making. I mean, like, for those of you who are maybe a little bit younger at that particular time, or maybe weren't even around. I mean, think about it like this. If you can remember how hot Kanye West was when College Dropout came out. So just imagine College Dropout coming out and Kanye West being one of the hottest up and coming rappers and producers of all time at that particular time. And then all of a sudden he gets into an accident and he can't produce, he can't rap, he can't do anything anymore. That might sound extreme, but I'm just trying to paint a picture as to where the D.O.C. was. Like, the sky was the limit for this guy. And the gift and the curse about that accident is that while we have stories as to what happened, it's kind of good that we didn't have the internet back then, because like, we don't know how serious it was. Like, we heard that he could have died, but I mean, it's like, if we see him and it's like, okay, he looked the same, because he still looks like the D.O.C. Like, his look didn't change.
He ended up dropping an album in '95 after that.
Yeah, and even listening to that album, it was okay, but it wasn't. No one can do it better.
With it changes it up.
Yeah, his voice is one of the most distinctive voices, or was one of the most distinctive voices in hip hop, I think. And I don't think I'm being facetious in saying it. I mean, like, his voice and like somebody like Chuck D, like I said, their voices, they pierce your speaker. So like, you can hear like, if you play the D.O.C. for your granny.
What if D.O.C. never got into that car accident? What if Ice Cube didn't leave NWA? What if the Game never leaves G-Unit? What if Teddy Riley never moves to Virginia? What if we got that J. Cole and Kendrick album? What if the RZA would have never had that flood? How would the hip-hop world sound today? Welcome to Hip Hop What Ifs, the podcast where we dive into the biggest what could have beens in hip hop history. From iconic album delays to game-changing partnerships that never happened, we reimagine the culture we love and explore its alternative paths. And you are now at